Taylor Watson.
Taylor
in Canada.
Watson.
You were recently married.
I just got married.
Your husband's in the back like, hey.
Well, thank you for being here for Galentine's
Thank
Day.
you.
And we're so excited to talk to you and learn from you.
Yeah.
And we're just grateful that you're here to kind of share your story and some of your wisdom with so many people in Canada. So thank you.
I'm excited.
We are super excited that you're here, but my first real question for you is, we know a bit about your journey to Elevation, but I want to know, how did you get into ministry, and specifically, how did you find yourself at Elevation?
Okay, so I have to go way back.
Right.
Are y'all cool if I go way back when? Okay, so I graduated college in 2015. I'm 30, y'all. But I was in a season where I wanted to go to law school, okay? I wanted to be the next Olivia Pope. Any of y'all seen Scandal? Yeah. I was finna be Olivia Pope. I ended up failing the LSAT. I did not get the score. But that was the moment for me with God where I questioned, like, who am I? I think at 8 years old, I said, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. And then I failed the exam. And I was like, okay, clearly this isn't it. And that was the moment where I kind of hit rock bottom. And I'm like, okay, God, what's next? And so I was living back home with my parents. I did not have a job. Well, no, I did have a job. I was at Panera Bread because I worked that as I was in school. And so me and Panera Bread were just doing our thing, soup, salad. And
I love Panera Bread.
Yeah,
Can
soup,
I say?
salad. I mean, we have a love-hate relationship, but it
The
got
half
me
and half
through.
combo.
Yeah. So I was doing that for a season, and then I finally had a moment where I was like, okay, God, what now? And he told me to go back to my church back home, and I'm like, absolutely not. I grew up very Baptist. Anyone grow up in a Baptist church? Yeah, I come from a Baptist church. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not going back. But you said do it, so I'm going to do it. And so I did that, and that's when I really started to realize, like, ministry is what I felt called to. But me being the person that I am, I'm like, if I'm going to be in ministry, if I'm going to be a woman in ministry, I got to go to seminary school. That only makes sense. And so I went on this journey of, okay, God, where do you want me to go? And I felt like he put it on my heart, Charlotte. And so I moved to Charlotte in 2019 by myself, y'all. Biggest leap of faith that I could have ever taken. But God told me to do it, so I did it. And I worked at Bojangles because I needed a job to live in Charlotte. Do y'all know what Bojangles is in Canada?
We don't have it.
Thank God.
We don't have Bojangles here.
Okay, you don't need it, but it's basically fried chicken, and it's not good for you. But I worked there, and God used it to get me here, and I did that.
And we're grateful.
And we're grateful. I am grateful. But as I was doing that, I needed a church, and so I started Googling churches. And Elevation University City popped up. And so I started attending UC. And it was a very hard season for me because God had told me something. He said, hey, I want you to move here for this. I did not know I would be at Bojangles as long as I was, right? But then I started serving at UC. And I'm like, I need a space for me. And I was 26 at the time. And so I am team E-groups. If you are not in an E-group, you need to get in an E-group. But I went to the campus pastor, and I basically was like, can I start a group? And he was like, yeah. And I did it for young adults because I struggled in college with my identity. I did not know who God was calling me to be in college. And when I failed that exam, I was like, all right, where do I go from here? And then after graduating, I'm like, I still don't know who am I. And so I led this group, and then COVID hit, and y'all know about COVID and how that went. But that group of like 10 went to 50. And so I did that faithfully. And then I got asked to come be on staff. And I said, absolutely not, God, I'm not doing this. Because the plan is seminary school. But you know how God works. He kind of flips your plan upside down. And so I did that. And now I oversee college and young adult ministry for our entire church.
And it's thriving.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of my journey and how I got to Elevation. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change it.
I think it's so incredible just how God uses the very thing that you think he couldn't use. Working at Bojangles, going to Charlotte for something that had nothing to do with Elevation.
Right.
And then he just flipped it and he was like, no, I was using this all along.
And the crazy part is, when I was at Bojangles, let me tell you how me and God used to wrestle. You ever have a moment where you wrestle with God and you're like, why do you have me here?
All the time.
That's what Bojangles felt like for me every time I was getting popped by chicken grease. But I was the boss, so I was the manager. I had a bunch of employees. They were all college and young adults. And I was basically pastoring them, which is really cool because that season felt insignificant, but that's where God was teaching me how to be a pastor. So a lot of people see me now and they're like, oh, she's a pastor. She oversees college and young adults at Elevation. I'm like, no, I was pastoring at Bojangles. I was pastoring at Panera Bread.
Amen.
You know what I mean?
Amen.
And so that's the really cool part about it is God was really like preparing me. So he does use every single season. Yeah. Every single season.
That's so encouraging.
Yeah.
You can just think it's such a simple thing. You were just going in obedience,
just going
to
in
work
obedience.
at Bojangles
Yeah.
and to see where you are now. Now, something, Taylor, that I love about you, and I've always loved about you, I love your energy, of course.
Thank you.
But I love that you've always just been you. You've
Yeah.
just always showed up authentically you. And I don't know if anybody else has struggled with this before, but sometimes it can be hard to always show up as you because you feel like maybe you're not good enough or my personality can't be used in a certain way. I don't know if you've ever struggled with that. And I would just love to know how you have been able to really build this confidence that I see in you because I look up to you in so many ways because of that.
Thank you.
Clearly you're thriving
Thank you.
in SIA and all the different things that you do. So I would just love to know how you've been able to do that.
Okay, since I'm at the Toronto campus, can I keep it real?
Yeah.
Like I can keep it real? I be struggling. Me and the confidence thing have been a journey. I don't think I've always been the most confident person. I think I've grown the more I've been obedient to God. Because there was a season in my life where I felt like my personality was actually too much. Y'all see the long nails. If you watch Coffee Fam, you know I be up there clickety-clacking. And I'm just like over the top. And for a while, I tried to like mute it because I felt like it wasn't going to be accepted. But I think the more that I went on a journey with God to figure out, God, who am I? And who are you calling me to be? I was able to slowly accept who he's called me to be, which is where now people see the little, like the confidence and the burst of energy. It's me fully trusting God and accepting, okay, God has counted every hair on my head, right? Meaning that the gifts that he's given me, the way that I talk, the way that I articulate, all of those things, he literally built me that way. And so I think the more that me and God have been on a journey, the more that I've learned to be more confident with my voice and just accepting like, y'all, this is me. This is who he created me to be, and I'm going to continue to grow, but like there's some things he put inside of me that are unique to me, just as you all.
Mm-hmm. I think it just gives so much hope, and I hope that it inspires other people that you can show up just as you. You don't have to hide. You don't have to tone back. God doesn't want that for you. He made you like that for a reason and for a purpose. Mm-hmm. And somebody, we talked about this earlier, somebody's gonna see you and they're gonna get that confidence that they need to be who they are. And that's what's the most important, right?
And I think for a season, I had a moment where it was really I was thinking only about me. So when you're in a space of thinking only about you, you can't see other people. And so I think I also had to grow with God of like, okay, this is not about you. Like you're complaining about your personality and how you're extra, but you're doing this for someone else because someone is coming behind you. You will meet someone at work and have a conversation, and they need to experience the God that you carry, the light that's inside of you. And so I now am just going to get on Coffee Fam with my nails like this because there is someone watching that's like, hey, can I come into Elevation Church like that? Absolutely you can. And so there's someone following, someone that you have to do it for.
That's so good. Yeah. That's so good. And so encouraging for, I feel like as women especially, we have a really hard time walking into rooms authentically as ourselves.
Yes.
Like when we do, maybe someone makes a look and you're like, oh, was I not supposed to say that? Or was I not supposed to, was that too much? And it's like, no, like God knew what room you were going to walk into, and he knew that you would be you when you walked in that room.
Right.
So I think that that's super encouraging.
Yeah. And I think here's a little shameless plug. Our pastor dropped a book today.
Yep.
Do the new you. Yeah. And if you didn't get it, child, what are we doing?
Right.
You need to get the book. But I think that has also been very helpful, like those 6 mindsets, right? Christ is in me, I am enough. Right. My joy is my job. I think that book just has confirmed, like, okay, God knew me before anyone else did. Mm-hmm. And that's the confidence I walk in.
Oh, that's so good. Mm-hmm. So good. Mm-hmm. I think even being as confident as you are and like as secure as you are in who you are, sometimes it can be hard for us to not see God in certain situations or certain seasons. Maybe you're walking through something and you're like, God, where are you? Like, okay, now I've gotten to this place. I know who I am, but like, where are you?
Yeah.
And so what do you do in those seasons when you feel like you can't see God?
I think I go back to, I journal. Do I have any journal girlies in here? Yeah, those are very important because you can go back to what God has done. And I think that sometimes life do be lifing and you do be forgetting. And so you have to go back to your journals and be like, okay, God spoke this to me and now I'm living it. And it's kind of crazy because, like, I'll give you guys an example. In 2017, God spoke to me the word swift. I know it sounds crazy, but he did, the word swift. And my word last year was swift, right? But prior to last year, I had went through a difficult season just trying to navigate all of the things, right? And God told me to go back to my journal, and I did. And then it was like a boost of like faith, like, okay, God, you said this, it's going to happen. And so I think for me, when times get hard, when I feel like I can't see God, one, I go back to what he said, but two, I go back to people that know the gift that God has placed inside of me that can affirm, you know, what God has spoken. Because like I said, life be lifing, and you can't really do it alone. You have to have people around you that can speak into moments when you feel like, I feel like giving up, because we do feel like giving up. And so I think it's having community, and you got to write it down. Y'all be using your journal? Like, I know this is going on YouTube, but we family.
Right.
Y'all be using your journal? If you don't, you need to get your journal and you need to start writing down what the Lord has done. Mm-hmm. And if he hasn't done it yet, he will do it.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. Something, just as you're talking about journaling, something that I did last year, and some of you may know this, is I actually created a board that was called The Chances Are Zero. Mm. And every time God did something in my life that could only be God, I wrote it down. Yeah. So now when things come up in my life and I feel like, oh, is God really going to come through on this? Is he really going to do this? I look back at the board and I'm able to physically see, okay, this is what he did. I'm going to put it on the board in faith that the chances are zero. Only God is going to come through and he's going to do it again. And I've seen that happen, and it was something I started last year, and I felt like that made a huge difference for me.
And even like writing it down, and like you said, the board, but then also taking like steps of faith, because I feel like God will speak things, and we're just sitting waiting for God to do it. Yeah. All right? And God's like, faith without works is dead, honey. What are we doing? Right. So you actually have to take small steps to meet God, and he meets you there. Yeah. So I say this again, if you did not get Pastor's book, I'm already in the second chapter. You need Pastor's book. Right. Yeah.
I think you just started leading into my next question, which really is like, when you have a God-given dream or a God-given vision, you launch SIA. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, SIA is College and Young Adults, and it's a ministry we did not have as a church before Taylor came around. Mm-hmm. We never had that. And so you launched this thing, stepped out in faith, believing like, okay, God, you gave me this vision for this ministry. I'm going to pitch it. I'm going to do what I need to do. But for the women in the room who maybe God's given you a vision or a dream, what do you do, or what are the steps that you take to even begin to step out in faith?
Yeah, I think when it came to college and young adults, my heart broke for it. And so when God has given you a dream or a vision or something, your heart is going to break for it. It doesn't mean that everyone else's will, right? So you have to fight for it. Because not everyone at our church's heart breaks for college young adults. You ask me, I'm crying, right? You ask someone else, they're like, okay, cool, right? So you have to know that God spoke the thing. But then you also, for me, in that season when I first started college young adults, I had to work my window. So I couldn't just say, hey, to my campus pastor, hey, can we make this happen right now? You know, he's gonna be like, girl, what are you talking about? I took baby steps. What can I do? What is in my hand? And the crazy thing is, I think a lot of us think that we have nothing in our hand. And I believe God has placed something in your hand. And you have to take steps of faith to act it out. And that's what I did with college and young adults. And I think as I honored God in obedience with what he gave me, he multiplied the rest. Because now I look at SIA and I'm like, I'm in Toronto. 3 years ago, I was at University City saying, God, please grow this thing. And now I'm in Canada. I think it is because I honored God with it and I worked my window in every season. And God was faithful to that.
And now officially in Toronto, we're launching College
And now we're launching it in Toronto.
College and Young Adults next week.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing, Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that and I admire that so much because yes, you have to have the faith for it and you have to be willing to step up. And I feel like so many of us get lost because we don't actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it is really just, okay, I have this, God. I feel like you've spoken. I don't know 100% because we're never going to know 100%, but you were able to take that step forward.
For sure.
I think
and
that's
I
amazing.
feel like when I came in here during the worship part, there was someone God was talking to me about in the room who God has given you a gift to do something, and you are letting fear keep you from taking that leap of faith. And I believe God sent me here to have this conversation with these ladies to say, just do it. Just do it, whatever it is. That it may be a big thing, it may be a tiny thing. God honors your obedience. And so I don't know who that's for, but he just wants you to take a step. And that's what SIA was. It was little steps, little steps, little steps, and now it's a whole ministry, but little steps of faith.
I think that's so incredible, and I know that someone is going to be encouraged, even just hearing that. I had a mentor of mine literally today send me a voice note and be like, God does not forget. Like, he doesn't forget about you. That dream he gave you when you were 3, when you were 6, when you were 12, like, he doesn't forget. Yeah. And so there's a lot of times where I think we're like, God hasn't come through on it yet, so I'm just not going to do anything about it. But he's like, no, I'm going to be faithful to that. So whatever that vision, whatever that dream is, like, he will come through, but you got to step out.
You got to step out, and you got to write it down, make it plain.
Amen.
You got to actually take it from here, put it on paper, hold yourself accountable, get some people around you. Get in an e-group. You know we believe in e-groups. Get in an e-groups because if you can't, God will bring the people. Like, he will bring the people. And I remember, and I know this is like not even part of the question, but I just want to give someone some faith here. When I first started SIA, I'm not the most creative girly. So I was like, okay, college young adults, you got to be somewhat creative. Like, how are we going to make this work? And God sent Juan, who was on staff, and he has a heart for college and young adults, but God sent him because he knew what we needed. And so if you're like, I don't have this and I don't have that, God will send the people to make the thing that he's given you happen. Right.
Yeah. Well, I want to know if you have any words of encouragement for the women of our church. Just a word. What can you encourage them with? What can you leave us with?
Yeah, I think one way that I live my life, one thing I say is do it anyway. Do it anyway. I moved all the way from Allentown, Pennsylvania to Charlotte, North Carolina, and my parents were like, girl, what are you doing? I was 26 at the time, supposed to be going to law school, and they were like, this makes absolutely no sense. And I did it anyway because I'm not living life for my mom and my dad. I'm living life for me and God, right? And your identity should be found in him. So whatever he has given you to do it anyway. And when you take steps of faith, God will meet you and he will send the people. And I think that's the cool part of what I get to be a part of at our church is that I know it was only God. It was only him, right? And there were moments when I was crying. There was moments when I was rejoicing, but only God did it. But I had to take that step of faith. And so whatever he's giving you, the gifts, the dreams, the visions, do it anyway. That's what I would leave you guys with today. Do it anyway.
Something I shared at Leader Advance was just the importance of remembering that God is with you. Yeah. And I think that's so good to do it anyway, but believe that he's in it with you, working through you, and he's right with you, strengthening you, helping you, whatever you feel like God has called you to do, just do it and believe that God will help you.
Yeah, he'll help you, and he wants to give you good things. And I think I went through a season of my life where I really questioned, God, do you want to give me good things? I know the Bible says you're a good father, but do you want to give me things, right? Like, do I deserve those things because of my experience growing up as a child? But I think the more that I've done it and I've trusted God with what I had, I've learned his character. And God really wants to give you good things because he loves you. because he formed you, because every hair on your head is counted. And so I think that's the beauty as you go on a journey with God, that when he made you, and Pastor says this in his book, when he made you, he called you good. So he wants to give you good things.
Yeah, that's so good.
That just encouraged me so much because I think that so many of us, and I know personally, like I struggle with believing that. I'm like, God, I know that you're a good father, but like, are you sure you want to give me good things? And then I'm shocked every time I get something good. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is too good to be true, waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I think that's just so helpful to be reminded, like, he is a good father, but he wants to give you good things.
But also understanding, because he is a good father, a father knows best. So if you're in the room and you're in a season, you're waiting, and you're like, God, I've been wanting this thing, and you haven't given it to me yet, your father knows best. And so if he hasn't given it yet, it's because his timing is perfect, and he knows when you can handle it and when you can't. Because there were seasons with just college young adults where I'm like, God, when is this going to be like a thing? Like, it's at University City, but like, do you see the fruit? Do you see what we're doing? And I wasn't ready. I wasn't mature enough. I just wasn't. And so God knew, and God knows. And so when the timing is right, he will give.
Yeah, he will. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Taylor.
you.
We love you.
Thank you.
You are always
you.
welcome. She's staying around for 2 more days with us.
I'm excited.
I'm super excited. She is helping us launch Sia here, and we are just praying and believing that we're going to see so much fruit from it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being
you,
here with
ladies.
us.
Thank you.